Gender nonconformity has long been a trope in the horror genre ever since Norman Bates dressed up as his mother in the classic film Psycho. It didn't take long for the film to inspire other movies. Only 1 year later, a film called Homicidal was released and has historically been known as a blatant ripoff of Psycho. Only this time around, the killer was a woman dressed as a man. And from that day forward, the Psycho trope was born. Even in this more progressive era, the trope is still going strong. In 2018, a film named An Incident in Ghostland released to controversy. The premise of the film is that two killers, Fat Man and Candy Truck Woman, break into the house of a mother and two young girls and torture them. Fat Man is a big, mentally handicapped man, and Candy Truck Woman is a man dressed up in drag, which many found to be offensive. This is an obvious callback to the film Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The famous killer from that film is Leatherface, a big, mentally handicapped man that dresses in drag. Now, what is it that aligns gender nonconformity so closely with the horror genre? In order to answer that question, we have to answer another question first. What makes a person scared? Defamiliarization is a term coined by Victor Shklovsky in his piece Art as a Technique. He defines it as the artistic process of making the familiar seem strange or new in order to enhance perception. Defamiliarization and horror go hand in hand. Take for example the uncanny valley, a phenomenon where people feel uneasy at the sight of something that looks human but isn't. In The Exorcist, Regan is a little girl, but she's not. She's got scars all over her face, completely blank eyes, chapped lips, and dirty teeth. The crawlers from The Descent are human-shaped, yet their faces look more like goblins. Even Michael Myers' mask. It almost looks like a human mask, but it's all smooth and missing its pigment. This can also be applied to haunted houses and spirits. A house is supposed to be where a family lives. Children playing in the living room, a parent in the kitchen, another one reading a book at the table. But then at night, it's empty and quiet. It's not supposed to be like that. And that's when the tingle starts going up your spine. Now let's connect this all back to gender nonconformity. We live in a patriarchal society. A product of this is hegemonic masculinity. In the document Hegemonic Masculinity, the authors Colonel and Messerschmitt define it as the masculinity that occupies the hegemonic position in a given pattern of gender relations. In this model, there is a masculinity hierarchy. Strong heterosexual men are at the top. Think Thor, Captain America, Aquaman, Superman. Then you'd have queer and emotional men at the bottom. In 1979, when audiences watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the first time and saw Leatherface, that was not a man to them. Like we said, men are supposed to be strong and kept together. This man was fat. He cried like a baby, and worst of all, he was dressed as a woman. That is not a man. It might look like a man, but not quite. It kicks in that defamiliarization. Brian L. Ott and Robert L. Mack touch on this in Chapter 9 of their book Critical Media Studies. They state, gender androgyny tends to result in a threatening, unsettling sense that things are not quite right with queer characters and personalities. Kate and Mark Garner wrote an article called From the Margins, What Archives Show Us About Trans Cinema and Audiences, and in it they say, trans people in movies are written and talked about as if they were abstract concepts, anomalies. This rings true for trans depictions in horror movies as well. They are not treated as their own characters, but as symbols of shock. One of the most iconic twists in horror history is from the film Sleepaway Camp, where the camera zooms out on the little girl who had been killing everyone, only to reveal male genitalia. These depictions do more than just lack character. They are comparing gender nonconformity to monstrosity. Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a skin-wearing murderer. Norman Bates from Psycho killed his own mother. Candy Truck Woman from Ghostland sexually assaulted two young girls, and Angela Baker from Sleepaway Camp murdered other children. These aren't just crimes. These are some of the most despicable things a person can do, and they are being attached to the trans community by no fault of their own. These transphobic depictions in Hollywood can have real-world consequences. For trans people watching these films, the experience is painful and alienating. It becomes hard for them to feel accepted by society when they are shown that they aren't perceived as normal. They have to constantly sort through dehumanizing portrayals just to find a scrap of recognition. As Gardner points out, very little attention is being paid to the ways in which a trans audience might see and react to these attempts at putting their lives in front of the camera. These portrayals are never made for trans people. but they have to carry the consequences of them. These depictions are rippling outward into society. Media isn't only a reflection of our reality, it plays an active role in shaping it. The man in the dress has become a symbol for mental illness and violence. These images echo in people's minds, even subconsciously. They're being taught through media to associate gender nonconformity with danger and fear. And fear, as horror teaches us, justifies violence.